Welcome to the forum for candidates in the November 5th general election for Ramsey City Council Member at Large. The forum is being recorded by QCTV for multiple showings. Thank you, QCTV. Editing is only authorized for official media reporting excerpts. Edited clips of candidates' forums may not be used for partisan political purposes. Meet the Candidates forums are held without a live audience, and voters' questions were submitted online for the candidates. My name is Varian. I'm the forum moderator and a member of the League of Women Voters, ABC. I do not live in Ramsey. I live in Blaine, so I can't vote for any of these candidates. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political parties or candidates for office. I'm sure each candidate cares very much who you vote for, but the League does not. The League does hope that each of you will vote. The goal of our forums is to help citizens become informed voters. The candidates for Ramsey City Council Member at Large are Kristen, Buscher, and Garth, Andersen. Welcome to the Ramsey City Council Member at Large candidates. In lieu of opening statements, we will begin with 2 questions which were provided to the candidates in advance. This will be followed by questions from the public which were submitted in advance. We will end with a closing statement from the candidates. For the first 2 questions, answers are limited to 90 seconds. So we'll start with Kristen Buscher. What is your motivation to run for this office? And what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively?
Thank you for having us. So my motivation for running for office is to take care of my community. I'm a product of the Midway neighborhood in St. Paul, and I was raised by my community members and feel that we should try and have that here in the city as well. My goal is to make sure that our community feels connected to each other, that we are caring for each other, and that the basic infrastructure of our city is done well, and that we're focusing on kind of keeping our community in a unique, beautiful space.
Thank you. Garth Andersen, what is your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively?
Thank you very much. Well, my motivation for running is that I love Ramsey. It's a beautiful city. It's a great place to live. And I want to keep Ramsey conservative. I want to make sure that we hold the line on taxes and just keep it a beautiful place to live, work, and play. And that's kind of my motivation for running. Some experience I have is that I have a background in finance as well as math education, so I've got a real head for numbers and really want to dig deep into that as I get on the council and make sure that we keep that fiscally responsible there in Ramsey.
Thank you. Garth Andersen, what are your goals for the future of Ramsey?
Well, my goals for the future of Ramsey is that I do want to hold the line on taxes and spending. Some of the things I've heard from people that I've talked to, they aren't too happy that property taxes have been going up. So one thing I want to do is make sure that we kind of hold the line on that. I'd like to make sure that we take care of our first responders, the police and the fire. The city's duty really is to take care of those first responders, make sure the infrastructure is set up right, and kind of hold the line on taxes. But the other thing I'd like to do is try to get more business. What that does is broadens the tax base in Ramsey, so it does take that burden off the property tax holders.
Kristen Buscher, what are your goals for the future of Ramsey?
My goals are to keep the space feeling rural and making smart decisions with our growth in our city, while bringing in new businesses and ensuring that our current infrastructure is sound and safe. I also want to ensure that our public works, our public safety departments, so our fire department and our police departments are well-funded and well-supported, especially through our growth times. And I want to make sure that our community feels connected, so having more community spaces and events so folks are able to participate in the community and really share their ideas and morals and values, so that can be a mirror of what our city looks like.
Thank you, candidate Buscher and Andersen. I will now ask the candidates to respond to questions submitted by the public, and responses are limited to 1 minute. And I will start with candidate Buscher. Many citizens prefer to engage with government using email or social media rather than in person. What means will you use to engage with Ramsey residents?
Currently in my campaign, I am utilizing various methods of communication. Text messages, phone calls, social media, emails, in-person meetings, and I would intend to use the same for when I'm in office. I think we should all be meeting people where they are, and so that means that whatever is the best way to communicate with us, we should be utilizing those avenues. And, you know, nothing is better than in person, and so I would love to host events where people can get to know me and what I stand for and how I'm going to help make sure that their city looks like how they want it to look.
Thank you. Candidate Andersen. Many citizens prefer to engage with government using email or social media rather than in person. What means will you use to engage with Ramsey residents?
I would use really any means possible, I guess. If you've got, I will email, I will talk through social media. I will engage that way. I don't really want to get into arguments with people on social media. I would prefer to sit down face to face and talk that way. One thing, I think that's one of the best ways to communicate is face to face. One thing Ramsey does is during the summer we've had concerts in the park over at the Draw and in the core, and I was able to go over there on one of them and actually talk to some people, and it's great to meet them in the public square and talk to them in those events. And I think that's the most useful way to communicate, but I'm open to any of those.
Candidate Andersen, how will you ensure that residents and businesses know about major projects and decisions and have an opportunity to provide input?
Well, if I'm elected, I will have a website that I will let people know about. We also have a City of Ramsey website. There's also a newsletter that goes out to all the residents, and that is a great communication tool. I personally read that always from cover to cover, just so I know what's going on in the city as well. And I will communicate through some social media as well and say, hey, that we've got this coming up, or here's something I think you as residents should be aware of.
Thanks. Candidate Buscher, how will you ensure that residents and businesses know about major projects and decisions and have an opportunity to provide input?
I will communicate with all of the citizens through, like I mentioned, email, phone calls, texts, social media, and I would encourage people to look at the City of Ramsey's social media as well as their website, the Ramsey Resident, but specifically for businesses that we should be supporting and really ensuring that they are aware of the current situation, especially with the status of Highway 10. I think we should be hosting in-person meetings at least quarterly, so they're aware of the steps that are being taken with that highway project or whatever other project happens to be going on, as well as creating opportunities for businesses to be getting together and learning more about each other and really having that opportunity to flourish and learn from our city what we have to offer to those businesses.
Candidate Andersen, Ramsey needs to attract, this goes to candidate Buscher. Ramsey needs to attract businesses in order to keep property taxes reasonable for residents. How will you attract businesses without offering them incentives?
I think the communication piece mentioned in the last question is definitely going to be an attraction for businesses, as long as we ensure that we are really keeping in touch with our businesses. Like I said, they're aware of what's going on in the city and what resources that our city provides, and how we can be of benefit to them. We are definitely a city that is has a good platform for small businesses and new businesses, and we're growing, and I think that in itself is huge, and it's attracting a lot of people. And with our new Highway 10, that is going to bring a lot of people through our city. That's going to encourage people to want to be there, and I think that our growing population is also going to attract people.
Thank you. Candidate Andersen. Ramsey needs to attract businesses in order to keep property taxes reasonable for residents. How will you attract businesses without offering them tax incentives?
This is one of my goals as a council member. I'd like to be able to do that and get more businesses in there. And I think one of the ways we attract that is to tell them that the Ramsey residents are really interested in making sure that they shop local. They don't want to have to drive into the other communities to spend their dollars. They'd love to be able to spend their dollars right in Ramsey and be able to help out the Ramsey businesses. We have a number of businesses right now who really it feels like a community. You go in there and they know you, and they'll say hi to you and various things like that. And it's great to have that, and that's kind of the atmosphere you'd like to bring to that, and let the other businesses know that, hey, you've got a community here that's willing to spend their dollars at your business.
Candidate Andersen, what is your position on a potential bridge crossing from Ramsey to Dayton, and why?
First of all, I think that a bridge crossing from Ramsey to Dayton is, I think there's a lot of moving parts involved in that. I think you've got to get a couple communities involved, not just Ramsey, but you have to have Dayton involved, and you're also dealing with two different counties. You're dealing with Anoka as well as Hennepin County. So I think there's a lot of moving parts, and I've not dug deeper into it. I am not really in favor of doing anything that's going to put more tax dollars or burden the taxpayers with more money, or raise taxes for people just to get something built.
Candidate Buscher, what is your position on a potential bridge crossing from Ramsey to Dayton, and why?
I think a lot of Ramsey residents work in the cities, and so 169 is definitely hard for folks to travel on. So having the capability to build something like that would open some of the roadway up for them to have easier access to employment is a great idea. Definitely a lot of moving parts, as Garth stated, but I do think that one of the benefits that I would bring to City Council is those relationships that we would need to make with neighboring cities and neighboring counties. I've worked in government almost the entirety of my career, which has allowed me and afforded me a lot of opportunity to get to know other folks, and with having those relationships coming into the office, I think that'll help us gain some of those relationships in those spaces, along with the ability to find and access grants from higher levels of government that I have experience in finding, so then it wouldn't potentially be a burden on our taxpayers, because I also agree. Candidate
Buscher, what is working well in Ramsey, and what will you do to protect the city's strengths?
The city does a good job of ensuring that they are working hard to not burden the taxpayers. And I want to continue to ensure that we are trying to maintain that level of sustainability of people. The economy is really difficult right now, so if there's a way to even make it easier for folks, I think that we should try and do that. And I really also think that we have a great relationship with our police department and our fire department, and we're supportive of those folks that are giving us, you know, all of that hard work during people's worst days. And so, you know, we can always do more and do better, but I think we have a great city, which is why I'm running for office, and I want to keep it this way. We're growing, and if we can make sure that we're not changing in a negative way and just for positive progression, I think we'll be good.
Candidate Andersen, what is working well in Ramsey, and what will you do to protect the city's strengths?
I think what works well in Ramsey is that they do have a really strong first responders. I think the fire department and the police department are really good. They keep the city safe, and I think that works really well. I really think some of the growth that we've seen with some of the businesses that have been brought in has been working well. We have an Aldi there, which is really nice to have, and so I think they're doing well with that. And the other thing they're starting to also they've been doing is revamping some of the playgrounds at some of the parks. And so I think they've done well to focus on that, because Ramsey has a lot of good green space that we want to make sure we keep green and keep available for the residents to enjoy and spend time out there and outside.
Thanks. Candidate Andersen, what do you think is the best plan for the old Ramsey Town Hall?
Now, it's interesting you bring this up, because my son and I, we go out and we visit different towns, and he takes pictures of city halls, and we've talked about that one for a while. And one thing that he says, and I kind of agree with him on that, is it'd be great to turn it into kind of a Ramsey History Museum and let people know about what Ramsey is and kind of the history of Ramsey. I don't think a lot of people know that there used to actually be an airport in Ramsey, where Connexus Energy is now. There used to be an airport there, and that a lot of people might not know that. They might not know the beginnings of over there by Itasca, over there off of 10, that was kind of the beginning of Ramsey. And it'd be great to have a little museum put into that, and people can visit that and see a little bit of history of Ramsey.
Candidate Buscher, what do you think is the best plan for the old Ramsey Town Hall?
I believe it needs to be a space that community can be able to go into and learn about the history of the city as well. I think it's something that we can add to our beautiful green spaces and parks by kind of making it a space where folks can gather as well as go see the history of the city. And on top of that, kind of learn more about the area generally speaking. There's a really rich history in the area of a lot of different communities, and for folks in our city currently that have been here for decades, that can share about how the city used to look and who used to be here. And we have a really rich history of like agriculture in the space too, and I would love to see that included as well.
Thank you. Candidate Andersen, Candidate Buscher, can you give me an example of a time that you successfully worked with someone with different views from yours to accomplish a goal?
I think, in all spaces, whether it be your personal life or your professional life, you're never going to agree with someone 100%. And the thing I always start out with is with respect and, listening, is being open-minded, being open-hearted, and understanding that people are coming from a good place. I try my best to reflect on my own thoughts and try and see it from someone else's perspective and experiences. And I think that those different experiences and perspectives is what gives us a good community. So, I work off of the other person and never escalate to anger, and do my best to be the best person I can be.
Candidate Andersen, can you give an example of a time that you successfully worked with someone with different views from yours to accomplish a goal?
think in many of the years that I've worked in corporate America as well as in education for many, many years, and no matter where you work, you always come across somebody who has a different point of view as you do. And it's really important to sit down and get in that conversation. And I know for a fact that I've had many opportunities where we've had to talk things out and look at both sides of the coin and both viewpoints and say which is the best plan. And if somebody has an idea, does that idea have a plan going forward? Does it make sense? And you have to look at everything and with an open mind and make sure that you have that dialogue going with whoever you're working with. You can't get contentious and rude and inconsiderate to people.
Candidate Andersen, are you aware of any proposals from city staff, and do you have an opinion on any?
I know that there is proposal out there for possibly a community center out there, and you know, it's a great idea. However, I always look at things with a fiscal mindset and a money mindset. And from my perspective, if you can't afford it, if it's not within the budget, without raising taxes and without tacking on a bunch of fees and doing that kind of stuff, it's something that you shouldn't move forward with. It's just like your home budget. You're not going to go out and buy a new car if you can't afford a new car. You know, and so it's the same thing. We're managing people's money. We need to be fiscally responsible with their money.
Candidate Buscher, are you aware of any proposals from city staff, and do you have an opinion on any?
I'm aware of the police department asking for a drone because of our rural area and kind of mixed spaces of urban feel to very heavily wooded areas, along with having a body of water nearby. And I would describe myself as fiscally conservative, needing to be smart with our money and making good choices, not raising taxes. And I understand, you know, funding just because of the spaces I've worked in, and including currently the executive director of a chamber of commerce. So I understand that it needs to be something that we make a decision on that's smart for the folks that are going to be incurring that debt. And so I think, though, that we should be supporting our fire and our police department, and if they think that we need it in order to keep our community safe and have our folks in our community feel that they're safe as well, we should be investing in things that they say that they need.
Candidate Andersen, what is your... Okay, look, now I lost my place. Okay, that was the proposal. So Candidate Buscher, what is your approach to conflict, and how will you handle conflict with council members, city staff, and residents?
This is a question that's kind of similarly suited to one earlier, but like I said, I definitely am someone that tries to come into everything with an open heart and open mind, with respect and understanding of others. You know, like I said, want to make sure that I'm hearing other people out, learning from them, their wisdom, their experience, and also being able to collaborate with what I have to say. And if something no longer is, you know, a fruitful conversation, I know when to step away as well. But I definitely bring the ability to have good conversation with folks out of respect, because I truly am a student of the human person. I have a theology and history degree, and the human person is my expertise area. I'm a people person, so yeah.
Candidate Andersen, what is your approach to conflict, and how will you handle conflict with council members, city staff, and residents?
Yeah, this was very similar to a previous question, and again, I would approach it with an open mind and sit down in dialogue with that person and listen to their point of view and hopefully share my point of view, and maybe we can come to some compromise, and maybe it's a compromise that both of us maybe a blending of both of our ideas. You just never know when you actually sit down and talk to somebody. Maybe they've got an idea and you've got an idea, but if you blend the two together, you can come up with even a better idea. And so I really getting just that open conversation and talking to people and hashing things out that way. No sense in arguing or fighting about things. We're all working together for this common cause and for the same outcome.
Candidate Andersen, what is your opinion of doing a speed limits and traffic, doing a study of speed limits and traffic on Nowthen Boulevard and Ramsey Boulevard?
Well, I can tell you it's not just Ramsey, but it's the whole Twin City area. Ever since COVID, people have been amping up their speeds and going a lot faster, and I think you do need to at least do something where you're monitoring that and checking that, because there are some residents there are residential areas along both of those streets, and you can't have people speeding going 65, 70 down some of those roads with residential areas. And so a study, again, a study can happen, but you need to be fiscally responsible when you're doing it and make sure that it fits within your budget.
Candidate Buscher, what is your opinion of doing a study of speed limits and traffic on Nowthen Boulevard and Ramsey Boulevard?
I'm not opposed to a study. I think that a study is a great way to start any sort of project if there is an intention to do a project. It does need to be something that we're intentional about. So if it's going to cost the city money and the citizens money, we need to be mindful of that. But we also need to be mindful of the safety and security of our community members, especially our young community members. And there's, children that are in those spaces, and we need to make sure that every space in our city is, working well for all the folks. So would not be opposed.
Candidate Buscher, what areas for improvement are there in Ramsey, and how would you work to improve them?
The areas of improvement that I see is, with our growth, and although we are taking care of and being mindful of those green spaces, I'm worried about the loss of a lot of those spaces. So we just have to be really careful with our growth, I personally think. And it's been booming really very quickly. So when we're planning our city and the places and spaces that new things are being built into and what those are, those are the kind of things that I'm like, let's try and think about what our future plan of the city is totally when we're making those choices. And I also think that we need to be mindful of some of the businesses coming in and telling us what to do with our spaces. Our city needs to have some autonomy over housing and businesses and the growth.
Candidate Andersen, what areas for improvement are there in Ramsey, and how would you work to improve them?
Well, one area a couple of areas. One in particular is the roads. The roads are, and I know that Ramsey currently has a plan in place to get the roads fixed, and are working on that, and that's something that I will continue to hopefully move forward to make sure we get those roads fixed. There are many roads that need serious repair, and I think it's important we keep those done well and keep them safe for so you can drive on them without worrying about breaking an axle or anything like that. And they're not that bad, but there are a number of potholes. I also agree with improve in the area of tamping back a little bit on the growth. I love the green space we have, and I would love to continue to maintain that and hopefully dial back a little bit on the growth.
Candidate Buscher, what do you think is the most, that goes to Andersen. Candidate Andersen, what do you think is the most urgent challenge Ramsey currently faces, and what would you do to address it?
One of the things that in talking to a lot of people, one of the challenges that they have said that they don't want is more apartment buildings in Ramsey. We've got a number of apartment buildings cropping up, and if it's zoned for apartments, I get that, you can put those up, but I think they just see that if you have too many of them, it'll burden the roads, it'll burden the areas, you'll start to see a lot of traffic, and I think I think a lot of the people I've talked to is they don't want to see more apartments, and so that comes back with dial back a little bit on that growth.
Candidate Buscher, what do you think is the most urgent challenge Ramsey currently faces, and what would you do to address it?
I believe that in connection to the upswing in apartments and homes that are kind of tightly placed together on less acreage, the loss of agricultural land, in my opinion, is really devastating. And one way to do that is, to protect it, is to support those local farmers. And additionally, try and figure out ways that we can make homes more accessible to folks, whether it be elders' homes or youth, so families can stay together in the city, but not overcrowding spaces as well. So, we can also do that through increasing some potential for transportation and things like that too.
Candidate Buscher, if you had all the money and authority necessary, what one thing would you do to benefit the Ramsey community?
I would invest it in the green spaces and community gathering spaces. The bright spot in my childhood is thinking about how close I was to my neighbors and the parks that I could walk to, the events that were consistently going on, the sports I could play. And I think that the city does a really good job at making sure that there are activities, but we can always do more and do better. And I would love to see more inclusion for our folks that are in the elder space, our aging, community, where, we're gaining wisdom from the folks that have been here for a while, and how they can then teach our youth to be better community members.
Candidate Andersen, if you had all the money and authority necessary, what one thing would you do to benefit the Ramsey community?
Well, I would also invest in the green space and continue to make that, create more trails and also build up more of the community events. We've seen a lot this summer at Ramsey, and we have one coming up this weekend, the Happy Days events, and what that does is really brings community together. And I think it's fun to get to know your neighbors, and it's fun to get to know who else resides in Ramsey. And I would have more of those types of events throughout the summer and make it a lot of fun and a wonderful place to live, work, and play.
That was your last question, so thank you. We will now go on to closing statements. You'll have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we'll start with candidate Andersen.
So first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity you gave us to come and participate in this forum. I just want to let people know that I am a fiscal conservative. I have been recommended by a local Republican group, and that's what I want to do with Ramsey, is continue to keep it conservative, continue to keep a handle on those on the money, and make sure that we're not raising taxes and burdening the taxpayers more. And I want to make sure that we keep Ramsey a wonderful place to live, work, and play. I love Ramsey. It's a beautiful place. We've got kind of the urban area in the south, and we've got the rural part in the north, and I'd like to make sure we keep that way. And so on November 5th, you go out and remember, vote for Garth Andersen.
Candidate Buscher.
Yeah, I just want to start with thank you for having us as well. And that, first and foremost, I'm a wife and I'm a mother, and I'm choosing to have my family here in the city for a reason. And I really believe in the city and its unique rural charm with some of the urban growth that has been here, along with the goodness of the people that are here. And I hope to advocate and uplift those voices because this is your city. And I know that I will be the best person to ensure that that voice is heard at the levels of government that I am used to being in. I am someone that is, as I mentioned, a fiscal conservative. I understand business as the ED of a chamber of commerce. And I want to make sure that people want to stay here. And from, birth on, your families are here safe and sound. And, that I will be available and working just as hard for your vote as I am for you in office.
Thanks. And the League of Women Voters would like to thank the candidates for speaking to voters about issues and for running for Ramsey City Council. And thank you to viewers and those who submitted questions. Links to all the forms are located at lwvabcmn.org. The general election is November 5th, and early voting starts on Friday, September 20th. Many cities offer early voting. Check the website for your city or visit the Anoka County Elections Office in the city of Anoka. You can register to vote, update your registration, find information on voting options, and find your polling place online at mnvotes.org or the Minnesota Secretary of State website. You can register or update your registration at your polling place on Election Day. The Minnesota Secretary of State's website will tell you what documents to bring. If you're interested in the League of Women Voters, please visit our website at lwvabcmn.org. Women and men age 16 and older are welcome to join. Your vote is your voice. Make your voice heard by voting in the general election.